Hey guys, I just want to make a quick video talking about the PCS power rankings for this week. Phase 5 end, so that's the end of Phase 5, and it's after Phase 5 has finished and before Phase 6, so it's going to be the end week. Every time it's in between phases. I've had a lot of questions over the past few weeks for each power ranking that I've ever done. So I'm going to just take a few minutes here to explain why I rank the way I do. So starting off with PS4, you're in the EU region. Flashpoint, of course, is number one. They qualified for the LAN. The Midnight Oligarchs were there at the team that they beat to go to LAN in the finals, and the Midnight Oligarchs have been slowly climbing the ranks over the past few weeks. So they're the number 2 team in EU, if you ask me. Number 3 would be iTech. Now, iTech was at one point at number 2, and then last week they were, I think, around 5 or 6. They came into this as the 5 seed, I believe. And, they did really good this week. They made it to the semifinals. They did end up losing to Flashpoint, but they did take one map off of them. I thought they'd take 2 maps off because they had once been neck and neck with Flashpoint at some time, but they just couldn't pull it out. But they did have a strong showing. Midnight Oligarchs didn't take a single map off of Flashpoint, but Flashpoint did. So you can arguably say that iTech is the number 2 team in front of Midnight. But at this point, I think Midnight is just a little bit stronger because they have been grinding more. They've been rising up in the ranks consistently to where iTech has fallen off, and now they are just now climbing back up the ranks themselves. Paladins France at number 4. They're still a very strong team. They beat Brutal Fissure in the first round. They took a map or 2 off of Midnight Oligarchs. But they were the number 2 seed. They did drop dramatically. So that's why they're at number 4. Botafogo team is at number 5. They had a tough matchup in the first round, but I just think that they're much stronger as a team than the 3 below them. Those 3 below them are Team Geppetto, who I've never seen play myself, but I do know that they are a strong team. I know some of their players. I haven't seen them play as a team under Team Geppetto yet. But at this point, they are stronger than Brutal Fissure, and they are stronger than Aftershock, who is a newer team, which is why Brutal Fissure is number 7 over Aftershock, because they have been here before. And when I say been here, I mean in a tournament before. Aftershock is, maybe some of those players have been in the tournament individually or on other teams, but this team here needs some chemistry build. And until they can prove that they are a better team, they are still that new kids on the block here for PS4 EU. Moving to PS4 NA, I Have No Hair, of course, was the LAN winner, or the LAN qualifier, so they will be going to LAN. They're the number 1 team. They didn't even lose a single game during the tournament. They went a perfect 8-0, so that was really cool for them. And they're actually the only one. They're one of the only 2 teams that did qualify for LAN with a perfect record. So they're the number 1 seed. The Streets of Drury Lane are number 2 now. The Flying DualShocks were number 2, and at one point they were number 1, but they've fallen off a little bit. Streets of Drury Lane actually beat them in the semis 3-1. So I put Streets in front of the Flying DualShocks because of the fact that they had an actual head-to-head matchup and they lost. And the Streets of Drury Lane had a head-to-head with I Have No Hair, and they lost to them. So that's actually why they're 1, 2, 3, and that's perfect for that ranking right there. At number 4 is Leroy Jenkins. They made it to the semis. They had to face I Have No Hair. They lost 3-0, but they had a really strong showing against a team that has a lot of potential, and that would be Low Expectations. Now, the reason why Coma and Martial Artists are above Low Expectations after saying that is because Coma has a lot of veterans. They can step it up. They're a better team than Low Expectations at this point, and I feel like if Coma had to go against Leroy Jenkins or even Martial Artists, that would be a more difficult matchup, and maybe Leroy Jenkins wouldn't be able to come out of that matchup victorious. Coma is a strong team again. Martial Artists has fallen off. They're down at number 6 now. They were the number 2 seed and the number 2 team for the past few weeks, past 2 phases, I believe. And they came out of nowhere 3 phases ago. They were the 8th seed or the 7th seed, and then they were the 2, then they were the 2 again, and now they're just falling off. There's a lot of There's a lot of people saying that they're going to break up. They're not going to be a team anymore. And if that happens, I'm sad to see that team break up. They were a decent team. They were very, very good, had a lot of potential, and they've been grinding and all the things that you need to do as a newer team. Low expectations again is number 7, but that's all right. They've got some young players on that team. They've got potential, and they've got people who have come into streams for a numerous amount of streamers, ask questions. They've watched gameplay, they've watched the footage, and they want to learn. So I think this team has a lot of potential. They've recruited some players that are top line veterans, and then you have those newer kids as well. So that sort of blend will help this team become a better one in the time being or in the future. MKS Gaming is the number 8 seed. Now, they did have the hardest matchup in the first round against I Have No Hair, but I just feel like this team doesn't really understand a lot of what is going on right now, and that's okay. I mean, that happens with everybody when you're new to the scene, and I hope that they will continue to be in the scene. They'll continue to learn, they'll continue to grow, because their players have potential. A lot of them are veterans to the game but not to the scene, so I hope to see them come back as well. And they made it to the final 8, so that's a big step, especially when it's your first time competing. So that's your PS4 NA. Now, for the Xbox EU, this had a lot of people messaging me on Twitter and mentioning me and asking me. And here it is. Vex Gaming is number 1 because they are going to LAN, without a doubt. Now, Revolt Gaming and Fable and Godslayers, the 2, 3, 4 here is a big thing, because anybody can be the number 2 team right now. Revolt is the number 2 team because they made it to finals. Okay, and last phase they actually beat Vexed in the finals of a phase ending, so that was really big for them. That has a little bit of momentum going into this this power ranking right here. But I will let you know that this is not solid. Revolt is not that strong in the power rankings right now, and the reason is because Fable and Godslayers are right behind them. They're creeping up. If I could make Fable and Godslayers both the 3rd power ranking together, I would. And the reason being is because Godslayers and Revolt win a total 5-game set. So Revolt beat Godslayers 3-2. Okay, now Fable had to play Vexed in the semis, and Fable took one map off of Vex. Okay, so they took a map off of Vex, and Vex beat Revolt 3-0. So Fable beat Godslayers in the 3rd place in the bronze match. So it's just a really big thing. It's a really big jigsaw puzzle, and I'm confident that it will solve itself so that I don't have to keep explaining myself to all of the Xbox EU players who are very, very frustrated with their team not being number 2, because apparently that's the best that you can get in Xbox EU, because Vexed cannot be beaten when it's time to compete for a LAN. So Revolt is number 2 because they've beaten Vex before. They made it to the finals this time, but they did get 3-0'd. They did go to a 5-game set with Godslayers. Fable beat Godslayers, and Fable took one map off of Vex. So Fable could be a number 2. And you can also make the case for Godslayers being the number 2. Although Fable has the stronger resume to be the number 2. So Revolt, Fable, Godslayers, they're all worthy of being the number 2. But right now Revolt is, just for the sole fact that they made it to the finals and that they have a resume against Vex already. Next week, if Revolt doesn't have a strong showing, then I can tell you right now Fable will be the number 2. Unless Fable has a very, very poor showing as well. Number 5 is Last Minute Scrubs. They were the number 4 seed, I think, and they were the number 4 team last week in the power rankings. They're a decent squad. They've made it to the finals before in a week 2 or week 3, I believe. They did it again this month, and I just think that with a little more practice and a little more determination, they've got some potential. They can be there. They can definitely move up in the standings. Number 6 is T-Lover. T-Lover, unfortunately, I've never seen them play, and I actually I've seen the names of the players on their teams, but I'm not really familiar with most of them. So to me, they're a fairly young team. And I've never seen this lineup or most of these players in the PCS before. So I hope that they continue to grow and have determination to keep playing in the scene as well, especially in the scene that is largely impacted by a lot of controversy about no team showing up. So I really want this team to stay. I really want this scene to grow, especially not just for Xbox EU, but for all 4 scenes, but especially for Xbox EU. And which leads me to number 7 and 8, which is not applicable because there were only 6 teams in that finals bracket. Xbox NA, of course, heating up is number 1. They're the second of the 2 teams that qualified for LAN and never dropped a single game all tournament on Saturday. So they want to complete 8-0. Number 2 is Elevate, but Elevate is not as strong anymore. They got 3-0'd by heating up, and they had 1 map taken from them by Sempiternal. So I will tell you, if this is heating up on the power rankings, and this is Elevate, this is Sempiternal. They're right there, which is why they're number 3. Another strong showing from them could potentially boost them past Elevate. Another thing is Elevate lost Styles. They already have Shu and Whoosh subbing for some other people. They lost Wonderful to heating up, so it's a really tough time for Elevate, and I hope that they can overcome it. Number 4 is R&B. I forgot what team they were, but they changed their name. They're a pretty strong team. They've got Slither. They've got some other veterans, and they're the number 4 team right now, right behind Sempiternal. So they're really strong as well. Number 5, Triggers Down, who's another strong team with some players that were on a different roster before, but I recognize those players. They're also strong as well, but I just think that R&B and Senpai are too strong for them in order to move up. 90210, another strong team, but they always seem to disappoint me in the finals brackets. I hope they stop doing that and that they grow as a team and get stronger. They show up in the first few rounds of the qualifiers, but then once it's time for finals bracket, they kind of wet the bed, so they need to step it up when the games most matter. Number 7 is Strikes Again, another team that does exactly what 90210 does. You know, they make it to the finals, they make it to the finals bracket, but then when the big games are on the line, they just seem to wet the bed again. So they need to step it up as well as 90210. Insurmountable, a couple guys in there that I recognize, but I've never seen this roster as a whole compete. So they're the 8th in the power rankings this week for Xbox NA, but I have a lot of confidence that they can potentially grind their way up the power rankings just as other teams have as well. So that's this week's PCS power rankings, phase 5 for the week, for the phase ending. If you have any questions or comments, don't forget you can follow me on Twitter at Bluball1993. There's no letter E in there. And you can also like, share, and subscribe for this video. And we'll have one every week for all your power rankings for now on, so that I don't have to explain myself 1,000 times on Twitter. So, yeah. Keep gaming, boys.